I thought we'd be talking about relationships today because it's a topic that a lot of people struggle with, and because recently I've just been reminded of how much pain it can cause people when a relationship goes wrong, when it ends. There's a person who's close to me who's going through that right now, and it's just utterly painful for a human being to go through that, which doesn't mean it's bad, but it is painful. We have to recognize it. So let's talk about that. There's some cherry green tea. I don't like it as much as the pure stuff because it's got this cherry flavour. It's just a bit weird really with green tea, but each to their own. Why do we enter relationships in the first place? We could come and we could start to unpack this idea of romance in the first place. What is it? Why do we do it? Why do we pursue it? Okay, back in the day, people used to get married for a very specific reason, and as you might know, it had nothing to do really for a lot of people. I think for most people in many societies, it had nothing to do with romance. It was about families merging together, so networking if you want to call it that. It's more of a modern term, but maybe not. It was not about love. Okay, it was not about love. People had stories outside of marriage, some people. But marriage, was not about love. And now we've replaced it with this idea of romance. We actually pursue, at least in a lot of, most of the Western world, perhaps, and other developed, so-called developed countries, we pursue relationships for our own personal emotional gratification or need. And that's the thing. There's the word, need. We pursue relationships out of need, like we do most of the things out of need. You see, there's a problem there, which is that to need is not to love. To need is not to love. I may need somebody, another human being, for practical reasons, whilst I might also be loving them. If I'm a person with a disability, there's family members who might be looking after me. Of course, I need them, but I may also love them. Of course, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is choosing to be with a person entirely out of need because you feel that you need them. What do you need them for? You need them to make you complete. You need them to make you happy, to make you fulfilled. And presumably, they want the same from you. There was a very good, very interesting thing that Will Smith said online once, and I like Will Smith as an actor. I never realized that it was actually also it could be such a profound person. He said, he was talking about his own marriage, about his own wife, and he said, we decided with my wife that we were going to present ourselves in the relationship as happy people. We were going to be happy already before presenting ourselves to the other person, rather than standing there with an empty cup asking the other person to fill it for us. And that is the crux of the argument. The problem is that we don't do that, do we? We seek a relationship because we feel incomplete. For me personally, a few years ago, I sought relationships because I felt that I was not worthy of other people's affection. And the longer I was single, the more I felt my mind was telling me that I had more of a proof, if you will, showing that I was not worthy. It was telling me, you see, that's why you don't have a partner, because you're not worthy of other people's affection. And I would compare myself with other people, and that would bring in more pain and more pain. And there's actually, let's be frank, there's a huge number of people out there nowadays who are suffering because they are not in a relationship. Their lives might be perfect as they are. They might be doing fine on their own. They don't need, from a very practical, physical point of view, they don't need anybody. They're financially stable, independent, but they have the story in their heads telling them all of these things. You what is wrong with you? Look at other people. Why are you still single? What are you going to do if you're still single in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? There's a fear then, of course, a huge fear of ending up alone, thoughts about dying alone. Now, why would you worry today about the day you're going to die? Very normal, we all do it, but why should we do it? And so you see, it's not about not having someone, it's about the story that you are telling yourself, that your mind is telling you. So we enter a relationship, and we hope that at last, when we find somebody, we will be complete. Perhaps we won't be, our life won't be perfect, but we think that we will be fulfilled to a great extent. And we find that is not the case. The relationship ends, and then there is even more grief and pain. And this is all born out of the fact that you pursue a romantic relationship out of need instead of love. And so ask yourself today, if you really just hold that question in your head and ask you, what would you do without your partner? If you're in a relationship, what would you do without your partner today? If your partner left you, if your partner died, what would you do? Would you fall apart? And if the answer is yes, you might want to rethink your approach to this relationship. Because this goes back to the idea of attachment. We cannot and we will not be able to fully enjoy something or someone if we're attached to them. And it sounds like a contradiction, but it's true. So this idea of love is actually, say, true love is about freedom. There has to be freedom in loving another person. There has to be the knowledge deep within that without this person, I would be just as fine. Of course, you would experience sadness, like with everything else, when it leaves when something important leaves your life, your experience of every day, you would feel sadness. But would you fall apart? Do you think it would fall apart? Because if you would, there is fundamentally something problematic with the relationship. And so the idea is that if I truly love somebody, let's just think about the idea of the perfect embodiment of parental love. And it's not actually that common. Just because you're a parent, it doesn't mean you actually truly love your children to that extent. But if you are a very good parent, a very loving parent, if your child comes to you one day and says, I'm going to leave, obviously they've grown up, they are independent, they're able to look after themselves, and they say, I'm going to leave because I am going to pursue my happiness in a place far away from home. Now, what would you do? Because a truly loving parent would say, go. Let's say go. Because that is to love. The paradox. It's one of those amazing things in life, really, you know, like many of the things. The paradox of love is that if you love something or someone, you let them go. And the fact that it's a romantic relationship where conventionally people live together doesn't mean that the rules should not apply. In theory, if your partner were to leave you tomorrow, you should be able to say go without falling apart. I'm going to leave you with that thought, and we'll come back to this. There's a lot to say about relationships and how they cause people suffering, but I think this is enough for the first vlog. So yes, I'll leave you with that, and maybe we'll talk another time in the future. Bye.